It was supposed to be a celebration. That's what they kept calling it, anyway. A celebration of life, a tribute to the man who held us all together, a joyous evening full of laughter and memories. But even as they spoke those words, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I'm Fred, I'm 29, and I've always been the quiet one in the family, the background guy. As my cousin Mark once joked during a barbecue, beer in hand and a smirk on his face. I laughed along, sure, but I felt that one. I always do. Growing up, I was the kid who never made trouble. I didn't rebel, didn't shout. I just kept to myself. I did well in school, got a job right out of college in finance, and slowly built up a modest but peaceful life. I rent a decent apartment. I've got a rescue dog named Stanley, and I spend most of my evenings with a book or a game on mute. It's quiet, and honestly, it suits me. My family never really understood that. They're loud, dramatic, always in each other's business. My mom's side in particular, chaotic energy wrapped in pearls and forced smiles. Aunt Clara is the ringleader, my mom's older sister. If you've ever seen someone throw a baby shower and make it about herself, you know the type. Clara has 3 kids, 2 divorces, and a desperate need to control everything around her. She's one of those people who uses the phrase, just being honest, right before saying something cruel. Grandpa, my mom and Clara's dad, was the only reason I ever showed up to family events. He was old school, but kind. One of those men who showed love in quiet ways. He taught me how to play chess, how to drive a stick shift, and how to cook steak just right. He didn't say much, but when he did, it mattered. He never raised his voice, and yet somehow everyone listened when he spoke. I always felt like he saw me, even when no one else did. When he passed away 2 months ago at 89, I was the one who sat beside him through the night at the hospital. Just me and him and the humming machines. His will was simple. He didn't leave behind much, just a small house, some savings, a few family heirlooms. No drama, surprisingly. What caught me off guard was the note he left me. Just a short letter tucked into his chest set. It said, "You were always the one who listened. Don't let them turn this into something ugly." At first, I didn't understand what he meant. But it started to make more sense when Clara took over the planning for the celebration dinner. "It's going to be beautiful," she told everyone. Black tie, catered, slideshow, speeches. Just the way Dad would have wanted. Except, he wouldn't have. Grandpa didn't like big shows. He hated speeches. He always said funerals should be small and honest. But nobody pushed back, except me. When I voiced my concerns on the family group chat, I got ignored. I tried again. "Are we sure Grandpa would have wanted this kind of dinner?" Clara replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was it. Mom texted me privately later. "Just let her have this. You know how she gets." I thought maybe I was reading too much into it. So I offered to help. I said I could pitch in for the venue or assist with the slideshow. Clara replied, "Oh, sweetie, you don't need to worry about all that. Just show up and try not to wear one of your weird minimalist suits, okay?" Everyone laughed at that. Still, I kept quiet. That's what I do. I sent over some old pictures of Grandpa from my phone, contributed a few stories when my cousin Lily asked for memories, and stayed out of it. The dinner was scheduled for a Saturday evening. A rented hall near Clara's neighborhood. 50 guests. Assigned seating. Dress code. She even hired a photographer. About a week before the event, I stopped by my mom's place to drop off some books she had lent me. As I stepped inside, I heard voices from the living room. Her, Clara, and Lily. I paused in the hallway, not meaning to eavesdrop, but something about the tone made me freeze. "He's going to be there, right?" Clara was saying. "Fred?" "Yeah. I mean, unless he suddenly grows a backbone," my mom replied, and they all laughed. Then Clara said something that made my stomach drop. "Good. Because the best part of the slideshow is the punchline. You have to see it. Lily edited it so perfectly. We go from all these serious tributes and emotional stuff, and then boom. That picture of Fred asleep at the family reunion with the ketchup packet on his head. The whole room is going to lose it." They all started laughing again. "That one's gold," Lily said. "We end the slideshow with it. And then your speech wraps it up by thanking every branch of the family tree, even the sleepy ones." I felt like I'd been slapped. I didn't even remember that picture. And it wasn't just the photo. It was the fact that I was the setup. The gag. The joke to send the room out on a high note. In a tribute to Grandpa, I walked back to my car without knocking. My heart was racing, and I couldn't believe how quickly the warmth I'd felt toward this whole thing was unraveling. I sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, staring at the wheel. Grandpa wouldn't have wanted this. He hated cruelty disguised as comedy. He hated fake speeches and forced smiles. I kept hearing his voice in my head. Don't let them turn this into something ugly. That's when the idea began to form. At first, it was just a bitter little fantasy. What if I didn't show up? What if I sent them all a message that said, "Good luck with your punchline"? But it wasn't enough. Because I wasn't just upset. I was humiliated. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about the slideshow. This had been my whole life in miniature. Being the afterthought, the footnote, the easy target, the quiet guy they could always count on to show up, stay out of the way, and laugh it off when they mocked him. So I stopped laughing, and I started planning. The hall was booked in my name. That was their first mistake. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and sat down with my laptop, scrolling through the confirmation email from the venue. My name was right there in bold: Frederick A. Langston, primary contact, and billing. It wasn't even that they forgot. Clara had used my credit card. Let me explain. A few weeks before the planning started, Clara called me, completely out of the blue. We hadn't spoken one-on-one in months. She laid it on thick, told me she appreciated how close I was to Grandpa, how I'd always been the thoughtful one, how much it would mean to the family if I helped cover the initial deposit until everyone else could pitch in later. I remember feeling stunned, not because she asked, but because she actually said thank you. Clara never said thank you. And even though it sounded fishy, I caved. She promised everyone would split it, swore she just needed a placeholder card. It was $600 to hold the venue. I didn't even blink. Except now, looking at this email, it was clear no one had ever switched the contact information or added their names. This whole event, the black-tie dinner, the decorations, the slideshow, the photographer, was attached to me. So I started digging. I emailed the venue, pretending to confirm a few details for peace of mind. The coordinator, a sweet woman named Jenny, replied with a full itemized list: final headcount submitted, menu selections, decor arrangements, and the total invoice. $2,740. All charged to my card. They never even asked. I sat in stunned silence for a few seconds, rereading the email. Not only had they planned to humiliate me in front of 50 people, they also decided I should foot the bill for it. No one had said a word about the rest of the cost. I hadn't signed off on it. I hadn't seen a single update. But the bill was paid. They'd used my card for everything. And then I remembered something even worse. My email was also the one linked to the booking portal, which meant every automated confirmation, every update, every change, they'd all been going to my inbox. And I hadn't even noticed. Because Clara had changed the sender name to something generic like Event Hall Notifications. I'd been deleting them for weeks, assuming they were spam. I could feel something boiling in my chest, a kind of heat that made my hands shake slightly. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Really, really angry. But still, a part of me hesitated. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe Mom didn't know Clara had used my card. Maybe they were going to reimburse me after the dinner. Maybe this was all just a big misunderstanding. I needed answers. So I called Mom. "Hey, sweetheart," she answered like nothing was wrong. "Hey, quick question," I said, keeping my tone even. "Did Clara tell you she used my card to pay for everything?" There was a pause. Not long. Just enough to confirm everything. "Well, she said you offered to help." I offered to cover the deposit, $600. Not the entire event. More silence. She didn't mention. "Mom, the venue charged me over $2,000. And then, in a voice so casual I felt the ground shift. "Oh, well, you make good money, right?" It was like she had reached through the phone and slapped me. My own mother. The woman who used to pack notes in my lunchbox and remind me to wear sunscreen. Now she was brushing off a four-figure charge like it was spare change. Like I owed it to them. I hung up. No yelling. No explanation. I just pressed the red button and sat there, staring at the wall as Stanley rested his head on my knee, sensing something was wrong. That was the moment. That was the breaking point. Every repressed feeling from years of being sidelined, dismissed, used, it all snapped loose. I thought about the birthday dinners where they forgot to order something I liked. The family vacations where I was stuck on the couch while the cousins got beds. The holidays where Clara's kids were treated like royalty and I was the one cleaning up plates. I thought about Grandpa's letter. "Don't let them turn this into something ugly." Too late, Grandpa. It was already ugly, but I could make it honest. The next few days, I played along. I stayed silent in the group chat, replied with a polite, looking forward to it, when Lily asked if I'd be at the venue early. But behind the scenes, I was making calls. I canceled my card and disputed every charge. I spoke to Jenny at the venue and explained what happened. She was furious on my behalf. Apparently, Clara had called from a blocked number and impersonated me to approve the upgrades. When I told Jenny I wanted to cancel everything, she hesitated. Fred, I'd be happy to refund you what I can. But the event is this Saturday. That's really short notice. Is the cancellation policy strict? Technically, no. Because it's under your name and you're the one requesting it, I can cancel it entirely. But that would mean no venue, no dinner, no anything, she said carefully. I sat with that for a moment. I thought about the slideshow, the punchline. 50 people, dressed to the nines, expecting filet mignon and sentimental speeches, only to find a locked hall and silence. I thought about Clara's smug voice, my mother's indifference, and then I imagined the group chat lighting up with confusion. Aunt Clara frantically calling, Mom texting, Fred, where are you? And me, far away, comfortable, watching it all unfold. I looked back at Jenny's email. Let's cancel it, I said. You sure? Absolutely. And just like that, it was done. But I wasn't finished. I booked a hotel room that afternoon. Somewhere nice. Not too far, just far enough to be out of reach. I didn't want to be home when the call started. I packed a small bag, arranged for Stanley to stay with my neighbor, she adores him, and turned off notifications from the family group chat. Saturday came fast. I checked into the hotel around noon. The lobby was quiet, peaceful. No screaming kids, no buzzing phones, just soft music and the faint smell of eucalyptus. I took a long shower, put on my favorite hoodie, ordered room service, watched half a movie, then scrolled through social media like it was any other day. At 6:10 p.m., the first call came. Clara. I let it ring. Then another. Mom. Ignored. Then Lily. Then my cousin Owen. Then Mark. Each one sent straight to voicemail. At 6:43 p.m., a message popped up from Clara. Fred, where are you? The doors are locked. I smiled. Then Mom. People are standing around. This is embarrassing. And finally, at 6:52 p.m., the best one of all. Aunt Clara, unhinged and furious. Fred, what did you do? Everyone's outside. Your grandfather would be ashamed. I waited 5 minutes. Let the chaos simmer. Then I replied with one sentence. Ask yourself why 50 people are standing outside a locked hall. And then I blocked her. The silence after that? It was glorious. The silence didn't last. By Sunday morning, my phone was vibrating like it had a pulse. Even with half the family blocked, messages trickled in through every app I'd ever used. Facebook, Instagram. Even an old email from 2014 suddenly came back to life with a subject line from my cousin Owen that simply read, You've gone too far. I didn't open it. Instead, I ordered breakfast from room service, pancakes and black coffee, and sat by the window in my robe while the world frothed with indignation on the other side of the glass. Downstairs, a wedding party was checking out. The air was clean. The coffee was hot. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt weightless. Still, I knew the fallout was coming. I wasn't stupid. The first real consequence arrived that afternoon, a voicemail from my boss. Hey Fred, just checking in. I got a call from someone named Clara who said you might be going through a personal crisis. Sounded dramatic. She mentioned family tension and implied you might be unstable right now. I told her I hadn't seen any signs of that here, but let me know if everything's okay. Unstable. That word made my skin crawl. Clara had called my job. She'd crossed a line I didn't even think she'd notice, let alone leap over. And suddenly, that fragile calm I'd been enjoying was gone. I called my boss back immediately, explained everything. To his credit, he listened. He even laughed at some of it. Families are wild, man, he said. You do what you need to do. But still, the damage was done. Clara had started a whisper campaign. By Monday, 3 extended relatives had posted cryptic Facebook statuses about betrayals within the family. My mom, who had stayed eerily quiet since Saturday, finally texted me. You humiliated us. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. No apology. No recognition that they'd used me. Just disappointment. But here's the thing about rock bottom. You find out who you really are down there. And I was done being their punchline. So I cut the rope. I logged out of the family Facebook group, left the family chat, blocked every number that had made me feel small in the past year. The hardest was Mom's. I stared at her name for 10 full minutes before I tapped block. My hand trembled, but I did it. Then I powered off my phone and went outside for the first time in what felt like forever. The hotel was near a coastal trail, windy and quiet, the kind of place Grandpa would have loved. I walked for an hour, maybe two, and somewhere between the crashing waves and the smell of salt and eucalyptus, I felt something crack loose inside me. I'd spent my whole life trying to keep the peace, to smooth things over, to be the good one, the quiet, dependable one who showed up and didn't complain and let the jokes roll off his back. But what good had that done me? They still saw me as expendable, as background noise, as the kid with the ketchup packet on his head. Even after Grandpa's death, they couldn't give me dignity. So I decided to stop earning theirs. That night, I opened a blank document on my laptop. No distractions, no internet, just a blinking cursor and a glass of wine by my side. I didn't know exactly what I was writing. Maybe a journal, maybe a letter to Grandpa. But once I started, I couldn't stop. Everything poured out, memories, guilt, anger, pride. I wrote until 2 a.m., and when I finally closed my laptop, my fingers ached and my eyes were burning, but my mind was clear. I slept like a stone. In the days that followed, I started building something new, quietly, slowly, with no grand declarations. I extended my hotel stay by a week, used some PTO I'd been hoarding, canceled a few meetings, took Stanley on long walks. Every morning, I wrote, not just about my family, about me, about what I wanted, about who I actually was when I wasn't trying to shrink myself to fit other people's expectations. And then something strange happened. The writing started to feel good, not just cathartic, purposeful, like I wasn't just venting, I was building, crafting something real. By the end of that week, I had 40 pages. I emailed them to a former professor of mine who taught nonfiction storytelling and had always encouraged me to write more. I wasn't expecting anything, maybe a nice job, or keep going. Instead, he called me. "Fred," he said, voice thick with emotion. "You have something here." I blinked. "Really? Really? This is raw, honest, sharp. If you're willing to expand it, I think it could be something more. Something publishable." And just like that, a seed was planted. I extended my stay again, switched to a cheaper hotel, and settled into a rhythm. Morning walks, coffee shops in the afternoon, writing late into the night. My job was remote-friendly, and I adjusted my hours to work half days while I rebuilt myself the other half. Each passing week brought more clarity. I hired a financial advisor and untangled the mess left by Clara's stunt. Yes, I got all the money back. I signed up for therapy and started unpacking more than just this incident. Years of quiet neglect and internalized guilt that had warped the way I saw myself. I even joined a local writing group where I read parts of my manuscript out loud for the first time. Every time someone nodded, laughed, or teared up, I felt like I was reclaiming something. And through it all, I stayed silent toward my family. They didn't deserve access to this version of me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But that didn't stop them from trying. Clara, ever the puppet master, began damage control. She sent an apology email filled with backhanded compliments and veiled jabs. "I guess we underestimated how sensitive you are. We never meant to make you the butt of the joke. It was just meant to lighten the mood. Grandpa always loved humor, didn't he? No mention of the stolen money. No regret for calling my job. Just an attempt to rewrite the narrative." I didn't respond. Lily reached out next. Hers was better, softer. She admitted she should have spoken up. Said she got swept up in the planning and wasn't proud of how things turned out. She didn't beg for forgiveness. Just acknowledged her part and said she hoped I was doing okay. I didn't respond to her either. Not yet. But I didn't block her. Weeks passed. My book grew. My world got quieter and stronger. And then, one night, I opened my inbox to a message that made my chest ache. It was from my mother. No subject line. No pleasantries. Just, "Your silence is hurting me. I don't know how to fix this." I stared at it for a long time. Because in some twisted way, that one line summed up our relationship. She didn't ask why I was hurt. She didn't acknowledge what she'd done. She just centered her pain and asked me to fix her discomfort. And for once, I didn't feel guilty about not replying. Because I wasn't here to fix anyone anymore. I was here to build myself. To heal. To rise. And when I finally stood at the edge of the coast again, weeks later, wind in my face and Stanley at my side, I thought of Grandpa. I thought of how he always taught me to move deliberately, to think before reacting, to choose dignity over drama. But I also thought of what he said in that final note. Don't let them turn this into something ugly. I hadn't. I'd turned it into something true. If there's one thing I've learned from watching my family implode from a distance, it's this. People like Clara don't apologize because they're sorry. They apologize when they think it'll reset the board, reset their control, reset your role, reset the illusion that they still run the show. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. And that meant if I wanted to do this right, not just to walk away, but to walk away with the last word, I had to play by a different set of rules. No yelling, no drama, just precision. The book helped sharpen that instinct. By the time I reached page 200, I knew I wasn't just venting into a void. I was writing something they would read someday. Maybe not as an audience. Maybe not with pride or joy, but with the kind of frozen, stomach-sinking realization that every smug comment, every eye roll, every joke made at my expense had been immortalized. But that wasn't enough. Because I didn't want them to just feel it later. I wanted them to see it live. I wanted them to look around and realize the world had shifted and I wasn't standing where they left me. So I made a plan. It started small, quiet, calculated moves designed to build leverage. Not over them directly. I wasn't about to become Clara 2.0, but over the narrative they'd built. The one where I was just the awkward cousin with a laptop, the doormat, the man-child who couldn't take a joke. I started with the venue. Jenny, the manager I'd worked with during the cancellation fiasco, was still furious about how things went down. She'd seen Clara's manipulation firsthand and had gone out of her way to refund every cent she could, including a cleaning fee she admitted probably wasn't your fault. I reached out to her again, but this time for something else. Hey Jenny, I know this might sound odd, I wrote, but do you happen to have security footage from that Saturday evening? She replied within an hour. Still archived for now. You're thinking of using it for what? A refund dispute. I told her the truth. I said it might be part of a book I was writing. I kept it vague, professional, polite. She sent me 2 short clips and a few screenshots. The video didn't have audio, but it didn't need it. The footage showed exactly what I'd pictured, 50 overdressed people milling around a locked door. Clara on her phone, pacing. My mother standing in heels, arms crossed. People checking their watches, whispering, frowning. At one point, Owen kicked the door. Then Lily showed up, tried to talk to Clara, and finally sat down on the curb looking absolutely done with everything. The visual metaphor alone was art. I clipped it, saved it, and filed it away. Not for the book, yet, but for something else down the line. Next came the book itself. After months of drafting, editing, and refining, I finally sent it to 3 beta readers outside of my writing group. Real people with no connection to me. 2 former professors, 1 freelance editor from a Reddit writing community. Their feedback was humbling and energizing all at once. This is part memoir, part firebomb, one of them wrote. But in the best way. I've never read a family story that felt so personal and yet so universal. That same week, the editor from Reddit emailed me again. Fred, I don't know if this is in your plans, but if you're open to self-publishing, I have contacts. Real ones. This is a story people will devour. At first, I wasn't sure. It felt big, public, exposing. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want this story to rot in a folder. I didn't need it to be a bestseller or a viral sensation. I just needed it to exist, to be real and undeniable and out of their control. So I said yes. And then I started planning the launch. But not like most authors do. I wasn't booking interviews or pitching to agents. I was plotting a reveal, an invitation, to the very people who thought they'd buried me under their laughter. I decided the book's release date would be Grandpa's birthday. It was poetic, clean, a day the family always marked with oversugared cake and forced phone calls. Now, it would belong to something real. I spent the next month preparing. I ordered advanced author copies with a minimalist matte cover. No flashy colors, no gimmicks. Just a single white chess piece against a black background, the king. I made a website, set up an anonymous email for press inquiries, wrote a press release that framed the book as a quiet meditation on grief, family power dynamics, and generational neglect. It was classy, honest, clean. And then, finally, I did the thing I'd been preparing for since the moment I heard Clara laugh in that living room. I mailed them copies, one by one, personalized, monogrammed packaging with wax seals. No sender name, just a simple message card tucked into each. This is what you made. Fred. I sent one to Clara, one to my mom, one to each of my cousins, even the spineless ones. And then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. Clara's arrived first. I could tell from the silence. She went dark on social media. Her Facebook page, normally filled with wine memes and minion gifs, was scrubbed for 3 days. Then a new post appeared. Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. Not every memoir is based in fact. She didn't name me, but the message was clear. The book had hit her like a truck. Mom's reaction came next. She didn't post anything, didn't write, didn't call. But my phone rang one night at 1:13 a.m. I stared at it for a full minute, her name glowing in the dark. Then I silenced it and went back to sleep. The next morning, she sent a message. Why would you do this to us? I didn't reply, because they had spent years acting like I didn't matter, like I was furniture in the background of their louder lives. But now they had to read me, page by page, chapter by chapter, line by line. They had to see themselves through my eyes. No spin, no edits, just truth. It was the slowest revenge I could imagine. By the time the book officially launched, I was already 4 months removed from the family I used to orbit like a cold little moon. The pre-orders trickled in first. Members of the writing group, friends of friends who had heard whispers about a memoir that pulls no punches. Then the reviews started showing up, slowly at first, but they were like drops of water on stone, quiet, persistent, and impossible to ignore. Raw and surgical, like someone calmly describing a train crash they survived. You don't have to know this family to know this family. You just have to have ever been dismissed, overlooked, or used by people who say they love you. I bought this because the author posted anonymously about it. I stayed because I couldn't look away. Some readers messaged me, thanking me for putting into words what they had never been able to. A few said they cried. One woman told me she gave it to her therapist. Another said she mailed it to her sister with no explanation and hasn't spoken to her since. I hadn't expected any of that. Honestly, I figured the book would make a small wave, maybe help me close this chapter and move on. But something about it hit people where they lived. And the most surprising part? It sold. Not millions, but thousands. Enough to reach the top of a niche chart on Amazon. Enough for a modest publisher to reach out with an offer to reprint and distribute more broadly under their nonfiction imprint. And that's when the real fallout began. The publisher, of course, wanted to promote it. They asked for interviews, podcasts, social clips, bookstore signings. I told them I'd do limited press under a pseudonym. Just initials, just voice, no face. They agreed. The first podcast dropped on a Wednesday, and by Friday, the family had completely lost their minds. The group chat I'd left months ago, screenshots made their way back to me through Lily, the only cousin who hadn't fully sided with Clara. It was pure chaos. Clara, Fred's spreading lies on the internet. Owen, that book's going to follow our name forever. Do you even realize that? Mom, I told you this would happen if you pushed him too far. That last one surprised me. Mom wasn't defending me. She was blaming them. Not apologizing, not regretting her own actions, but finally admitting I hadn't snapped without reason. A crack in the mask. It got worse for Clara before it got better. Apparently, several of her wine club friends bought the book without realizing who wrote it, until they hit the scene at the tribute dinner and recognized themselves in the chaos outside that locked hall. I never used anyone's full names in the manuscript, but the context was enough. The woman who screamed at the valet, the man who threw up on the hedges, the aunt pacing in heels and shouting into her phone. They knew, and Clara knew they knew. According to Lily, Clara tried to spin it as a fictionalization, a satirical exaggeration written by an unstable family member who had a grudge. But she couldn't get away from the receipts, the screenshots, the footage, and most damning of all, the fact that everyone believed it. Because deep down, they all knew she was capable of every word. One by one, her social groups started to shrink. A few unfriended her. Some stopped replying to her event invites. Her reputation, the thing she'd guarded like a crown jewel for years, began to rot in public view. Mom called me again during this time. Left a voicemail that was half sigh, half monologue. I read it. The whole thing. I didn't realize how much I'd hurt you. I thought I was doing the best I could. But maybe my best was just what I needed, not what you did. I didn't call her back, but I didn't block her either. I'd already said everything I needed to say. On paper. In print. Forever. In late spring, I got a speaking invitation from a university panel on narrative nonfiction. They offered a flight, hotel, and a modest honorarium. I accepted. That night, I stood in front of a small audience of students and writers, reading from the chapter called The Ketchup Packet. The room went still. No laughter. No giggles. Just a quiet kind of electricity. At the end, a woman in the front row raised her hand. "Do they know?" she asked. "Your family." I nodded. "They know." "What did they say?" "Doesn't matter," I said. They had their turn. This was mine. Afterward, a professor came up and shook my hand. "You know," he said, "there's a whole generation of people who are going to see their own families in your story. Not just the dysfunction, but the reclamation. You made something ugly into something honest." Those words stuck with me, because I realized in that moment, the revenge had already happened. Not in the petty sense. Not in making Clara cry or making my mother squirm. That was incidental. The real revenge was that I didn't need them to change for me to rise. They didn't get to define me anymore. They didn't get to clip my sentences or reduce me to a joke or bury me under their expectations. I had written my way out. I had rewritten myself. And by the end of the year, I was living in a new city, one I dreamed about moving to for years, but never had the courage to try. I signed with an agent. Started outlining my second book. Adopted a second dog so Stanley wouldn't be lonely. I built a life, not in rebellion, but in release. I never saw Clara again. I imagine she still seethes every time someone mentions the word memoir. Good. Let her. Mom and I eventually exchanged a few emails. Tentative ones. Careful. I don't know if we'll ever be close again. But at least now, she meets me where I am, not where she thinks I should be. As for Grandpa, I visit his grave once a year. I bring a chess piece, the king, and I leave it on the headstone. Just for him. The last time I went, I sat under the old maple tree nearby, opened my copy of the book, and read aloud from the final paragraph. The words I'd spent months perfecting. The words that closed the loop. They tried to make me the punchline. But I learned to write the setup, deliver the line, and walk off stage with the mic still warm in my hand. And then I closed the book, looked out across the quiet grass, and whispered the only line that still mattered. I win.